The world is in chaos. Strange ships have begun appearing in the skies, and Earth's defenders are on high alert. But among the chaos, one decision will fracture the Avengers forever. Captain America, the symbol of hope, makes a choice that no one could have foreseen. When faced with an alien threat, Steve Rogers' judgment is put to the test. But in the heat of the battle, a desperate mistake is made. A decision that costs an innocent life. An alien envoy, sent to broker peace, lies dead at Cap's feet. Now, the Avengers face a grave question. Who can you trust? As the weight of his action hits, the real enemy begins to show their true face. Alien fury is unleashed, and Earth may pay the price for one superhero's fatal error. The fight had been brutal. Earth was under siege by a fleet of mysterious alien ships that appeared from nowhere. The Avengers had already engaged the invaders, Iron Man, Thor, and Spider-Man, each fighting with everything they had. But when the enemy forces appeared to be overwhelming, a strange alien craft descended. The Avengers initially believed it to be another weapon of the enemy, another piece of the invasion. It wasn't until the alien stepped out that the real confusion began. The alien appeared as a towering figure with glowing blue skin and strange, intricate markings along its face. It raised its arms as if to communicate, but before it could speak, a shadowy figure in the sky streaked across the clouds. Xy'Kor, the alien warlord behind the invasion, had made his move. He ordered his fleet to strike, and chaos erupted. Captain America, ever the tactician, had seen enough. He rushed forward, shouting to stop the incoming blast. In his mind, this alien was no envoy, just another invader, trying to mislead the Avengers while Xy'Kor's army attacked. He didn't wait for confirmation, didn't pause to hear the alien's words. His shield soared through the air, deflecting incoming blasts, but in that brief moment of desperation, Steve misjudged. The alien's chest was pierced by the edge of his shield. The alien crumpled to the ground, gasping its final breath, and Steve froze in place. What have I done? The realization hit him too late. The alien wasn't an enemy. It was a peace envoy, the only hope for a truce between Earth and the invaders. He had killed the very one who could have prevented the war. And Weiss, he had killed the sister of Xy'Kor, the alien warlord who had planned this entire invasion. The Avengers were left in shock, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what had just transpired. Iron Man flew in, hovering above Captain America, his helmet masking his disbelief. "Cap, what the hell did you do?" Tony's voice crackled through his suit's comm system. "Steve," Thor's voice was softer, yet filled with reproach. "You've killed the wrong one." Captain America looked down at the fallen alien, the guilt sinking into his bones. What he thought had been a battlefield decision turned out to be a devastating miscalculation. His actions had cost not only an innocent life, but also the trust of his team. Before anyone could react further, the sky darkened. The ships above shifted, and a booming voice filled the air. "You fools! You've doomed yourselves." Xy'Kor's enormous, ominous form appeared in the sky, his face twisted with rage. "You killed my sister. Now you shall pay the price." Xy'Kor's fleet dropped bombs, massive beams of energy raining down on Earth, setting the world ablaze. But worse than the devastation from the Warlord was the fracture inside the Avengers' ranks. Tony, Spider-Man, and Thor stood in a tense silence. The Avengers were divided. Captain America's mistake wasn't just one of judgment, it was a betrayal. A betrayal that left them wondering whether Steve Rogers, the soldier they all trusted, was now the greatest threat to their mission. As Xy'Kor unleashed hell upon the Earth, Steve found himself facing not just an alien warlord, but the bitter consequences of his actions. Could the Avengers pull together in time to stop the invasion, or would the alien fury prove too much for them to handle? The world was burning, and the Avengers were splintering. The ground trembled beneath the force of Xy'Kor's attack, but the real battle was happening within the team. What had started as a moment of unity against an alien invasion was now a battleground of accusations, mistrust, and guilt. Captain America stood in the midst of the chaos, the weight of his shield suddenly feeling heavier than ever. His mind raced, replaying the moment when he threw it. Was there any way he could have known? The alien envoy had moved toward him in what he interpreted as an aggressive gesture. But had it been a plea for peace? Had his anger clouded his judgment? Tony Stark, hovering above in his Iron Man suit, was the first to break the silence. "You should have waited, Steve," he said, his voice sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. That alien wasn't an invader, and now we're facing an enemy that will tear us apart. His suit's arc reactor pulsed angrily, mirroring his frustration. This isn't just some alien threat. This is personal. Steve's jaw tightened. He wanted to explain, wanted to shout that he did what he thought was right in the heat of battle, but the words wouldn't come. Every time he looked at the lifeless body of the peaceful envoy, his heart sank deeper. Thor stood a few paces away, his brow furrowed in deep thought. He'd known Captain America for a long time, trusted him like a brother, but the mistake Steve had made was undeniable. "We cannot undo this, Steve," Thor finally spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. Xy'Kor's wrath will be unstoppable, but you must face the consequences of your actions, as we all must. The alien warlord's wrath was indeed relentless. Xy'Kor's ships hovered over major cities, dropping bombs and unleashing devastating energy beams. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and the air was thick with the smoke of destruction. The Avengers' immediate response was frantic. Iron Man fired missiles, Thor summoned thunder, and Spider-Man swung through the chaos, trying to evacuate civilians. But in the middle of the battle, the question remained, could they still function as a team? Captain America's mistake had cracked the fragile trust that held them together. In the middle of the destruction, Steve tried to reach out. "I know I messed up. I was wrong. But we can still stop him, together. We have to stop Xy'Kor before he destroys everything. Please, we're stronger than this." But Tony's voice shot back through his comms. "You don't get to ask for together anymore, Steve. You made the call. You killed someone who could have helped us. And now Xy'Kor is going to kill us all." It was Spider-Man, though, who spoke up next. His voice wasn't angry, just confused. "So, what now? We keep fighting. Or do we just—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Could they keep fighting together? Or was it too late? Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and Xy'Kor's ship hovered closer. His voice boomed over the battlefield. "You've sealed your fate, humans. You killed my sister. Now, you will all die." His alien forces began a second wave of attacks, this time with brutal precision, targeting the heart of the Avengers base. In that moment, Captain America knew that his redemption wouldn't come through words or apologies. The Avengers might never forgive him. But the mission had to come first. Earth was facing extinction, and Xy'Kor's fury couldn't be ignored. With grim determination, Steve took off running, calling to his team, "We need to regroup. Focus on Xy'Kor's ship. It's the only way we can stop this." But not everyone was ready to follow him. Iron Man stayed back, unwilling to let Steve lead again. Thor turned away, shaking his head in disappointment. "You may be Captain America, Steve, but you're no longer the leader we trust. You've lost that right." But Steve couldn't stop. He had made a mistake, and the only way to make up for it was to end this, no matter the cost. The battle raged on, but inside the Avengers' headquarters, the tension was palpable. Steve Rogers stood alone, staring at the ruined wreckage of the alien envoy. His teammates, his friends, had all distanced themselves from him. Iron Man hovered in the distance, busy tracking Xy'Kor's movements with his satellite array, while Thor and Spider-Man argued about the best way to approach the battle. Their fractured unity was undeniable. It felt like everything was slipping through his fingers. Steve had always fought for his team, for their trust, for the betterment of humanity. But now, trust was something he wasn't sure he'd ever be able to earn back. And humanity, it was on the brink of destruction. As the final wave of alien attacks pounded the Earth's surface, a new sense of urgency took over Captain America. Xy'Kor had unleashed hell on Earth. If they didn't act soon, Earth would be lost. His eyes turned to the sky, where the alien Warlord's massive flagship hovered, glowing with energy that would soon wipe out entire cities. Steve clenched his fists. He couldn't let the Avengers fall apart. He had to stop this. And he knew one thing. If it meant making the ultimate sacrifice, he would do it. Suddenly, Tony's voice crackled in Steve's earpiece. "Cap, you still with us?" Steve didn't hesitate. "I'm here." "We've got a shot," Tony said, urgency in his tone. "There's a weak spot on Xy'Kor's ship. If we hit it hard enough, we can take him down. But we need to be strategic." Steve paused, running the strategy in his mind. It wasn't a perfect plan, But it was their only chance. The only problem? The plan required the Avengers to work together, something that seemed impossible at this point. But Steve wasn't backing down. He had to make them believe they could do this. He approached Tony, who was hovering near a ruined skyscraper, his face hidden behind the mask of his Iron Man suit. "Tony, we can't do this alone," Steve said quietly, almost pleading. Tony's helmet swiveled to face him, and for the first time, Steve saw a flicker of doubt in his friend's eyes. "You've got a lot of nerve, asking for help now, Steve. But I get it. We need to focus on Xy'Kor. Let's finish this." The team regrouped, despite the cracks in their relationship. Spider-Man swung down, followed by Thor, who seemed less inclined to speak but more ready to fight. The Avengers were back in action, but now, it was not about trust. It was about survival. Xy'Kor's flagship loomed large in the sky. With all their combined strength, the Avengers launched their assault, flying at the ship with everything they had. Iron Man fired missiles, Spider-Man webbed up enemy forces, and Thor summoned lightning that cracked the air. Steve led the charge, shield in hand, deflecting blasts from Xy'Kor's energy cannons as they fought their way toward the core of the ship. But as they neared the ship's weak spot, Xy'Kor appeared, his monstrous figure emerging from the shadows. "You think you can stop me? You killed my sister, and now you will pay," he hissed. The alien Warlord raised his hands, summoning a storm of dark energy that sent the Avengers scattering. Steve struggled to stay on his feet, but his body was screaming in pain from the onslaught. "Steve, we need a plan," Tony shouted as he tried to re-establish his connection with the team. Steve nodded, his mind racing. He could see it now. Xy'Kor was vulnerable. The Warlord was so focused on destroying Earth that he hadn't noticed his own ship's energy reserves were growing unstable. "I'll create a diversion," Steve said, his voice low but determined. "You all hit the core at full force. I'll keep Xy'Kor occupied." The others hesitated. It was a risky move, maybe even a suicide mission. But there was no time for second-guessing. Steve knew what he had to do. Iron Man gave a reluctant nod. "Be careful, Cap," he said, his voice softer now. As the Avengers launched their final attack on the flagship's core, Captain America faced down Xy'Kor. The Warlord, enraged, charged at Steve with all his might. But Steve was ready. Shield raised. He charged headfirst into the battle, dodging Xy'Kor's strikes, aiming for the heart of the ship. The two clashed in a fierce, brutal exchange. Xy'Kor's dark energy was overwhelming, but Steve held his ground. He blocked every strike, knowing that every second counted. Finally, with a last, desperate push, Steve hurled his shield straight at Xy'Kor, deflecting off the Warlord's armor and smashing into the ship's core. The ship shook violently, the explosion echoing across the battlefield. The Avengers watched as Xy'Kor was sent tumbling to the ground, defeated. But the price was steep. Captain America's body was limp as he fell to his knees. His shield, once a symbol of hope, lay shattered at his feet. The battlefield was silent, save for the lingering echoes of the explosion that had obliterated Xy'Kor's flagship. The Avengers stood, battered and broken, staring at the wreckage of their foe. The Warlord was no more, but the cost of victory was unbearable. In the center of it all, Captain America knelt, his body still, his shield shattered beside him. Iron Man hovered nearby, his suit's lights flickering, scanning the debris. "Cap, Steve." Tony's voice broke through the chaos, filled with panic. He swooped down, landing beside his friend. "Steve, talk to me, man. Come on, we need to get you to a medic." But Captain America barely moved. His breathing was shallow, labored. Blood stained his uniform, and his face was pale. His eyes, however, still held a flicker of determination. I did it," Steve murmured, voice weak but resolute. "I stopped him. I made it right." Thor walked over, his face solemn as he looked at Steve's battered form. "You have redeemed yourself, Steve," he said, his voice heavy with respect. "The Warlord is gone, and Earth is safe because of your sacrifice." But Spider-Man, still trying to catch his breath from the fight, hesitated. "Is it really enough, though? I mean, we all here fighting, and you—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. The air was thick with unsaid words, and Steve knew it. He had saved the world, but the question remained, Was it enough to repair the trust he had broken? "I'm sorry," Steve whispered, his voice barely audible. I was wrong. I killed an innocent. I wasn't thinking, and I hurt you all. I didn't deserve to be your leader." His hand reached out weakly, grasping the shattered remains of his shield. "I thought I could fix everything, but I was wrong." The Avengers stood in silence. They had won the battle, but Steve had paid a price. Was this the redemption he had longed for? Or was it the ultimate cost of his mistake? The team had won, but the fracture in their unity was still raw. Tony knelt beside Steve, his voice quieter than usual. "You don't have to apologize for saving us, Steve. The world, it needed someone to step up. But next time, think before you act." Steve nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes as he looked up at the team. "I know I've let you down, but I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I won't run from it." Thor placed a hand on Steve's shoulder. "You've given everything, Steve. That's all we can ask of any of us. I think we'll be able to move forward, together, if we all choose to." Spider-Man, who had been quiet for the past few minutes, stepped forward. "Yeah, Capital. We're a team. I mean, I get it. We make mistakes. But you did the right thing when it mattered most." He gave Steve a small, almost hesitant smile. "It's not about being perfect. It's about doing the best you can, even when you mess up." Steve's lips curved into a faint smile, his eyes closing in relief. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the weight on his shoulders began to lift. Maybe, just maybe, he could still be a part of this team. Maybe the Avengers could still heal from the fracture he'd caused. As the team began to regroup, preparing to leave the battlefield, the sound of approaching sirens echoed in the distance. Earth was safe, but the journey ahead would not be easy. The Avengers had won the battle, but the real test was yet to come. Could they rebuild the trust they'd lost? And could Steve Rogers rebuild the legacy he had nearly destroyed? Tony turned to Steve one last time, his voice softer, almost reluctant. "We're gonna need you, Steve. You know that, right?" Steve, looking at his broken shield, finally nodded. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Epilogue. The war was over, and Earth was safe once again. But the scars of the battle remained, both on the world and within the Avengers. Captain America's mistake had torn apart the very foundation of the team, but through sacrifice, redemption, and the willingness to fight for each other, the Avengers began to rebuild. Steve Rogers may have lost his shield, but he hadn't lost his purpose. He hadn't lost the heart of what it meant to be a hero. In the end, redemption wasn't about perfection. It was about the strength to keep fighting, even when it seemed impossible. And as the Avengers stood together once more, they knew one thing for certain: no matter how many mistakes they made, they were always stronger together. Because, in the end, even the greatest heroes were only human.